Now that Donald Trump is a convicted felon, it's really starting to look like he's the wannabe mob boss sitting on top of a criminal enterprise. And I only say that because if you take a closer look at Trump's inner circle, you will see a wide range of criminal activity. Trump himself was found guilty of 34 different felonies for falsifying business records and furtherance of another crime. A jury also found him liable of the sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll. He was then found civilly liable for the defamation of E. Jean Carroll, and because he wouldn't shut his mouth, a jury awarded her $83 million for defamation, a just staggering sum. But the criminal activity is not limited to Trump himself. The Trump Organization was fined $2 million for misusing charitable foundation funds and furtherance of Donald Trump's political ambitions. They were also found guilty by a jury for criminal tax fraud and falsifying business records. So it seems like wherever Trump goes, there is criming to be done. And that could not be more true for the people closest to Trump in his inner circle, starting with Paul Manafort, who was Trump's former campaign chairman, convicted of bank and tax fraud. Let's roll the tape.
The jury found Paul Manafort guilty of intentionally dodging taxes on millions of dollars that he earned as a political consultant for the former president of Ukraine well before Manafort served briefly as President Trump's campaign chairman. Prosecutors said he stashed the money in overseas banks and used it to indulge his expensive tastes in clothes, antiques, and cars by wiring money directly from those accounts to pay his bills, bypassing tax collectors from the IRS. From 2010 through 2014, prosecutors said Manafort earned more than $30 million, but reported less than half of it as income. When the Ukrainian money dried up, prosecutors said Manafort lied in applying for more than $20 million in loans from 3 banks to maintain his lavish spending habits. The jury convicted him of 2 of those bank fraud counts. In all, Manafort faced 18 criminal counts. The jury convicted him on 8 of them, but could not agree on the other 10.
So pretty grimy behavior by Paul Manafort there. And then we have Roger Stone, who was literally Trump's former advisor, convicted of witness tampering. I mean, this is a very serious crime. From Roger Stone. Let's go ahead and take a look at that really quick.
Now to the verdict tonight involving Roger Stone, guilty on all counts. The president's longtime associate, guilty of lying to Congress and witness tampering and obstruction, now facing what could be significant time in federal prison. Here's our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, so-called dirty trickster Roger Stone and political disciple of Richard Nixon emerging from the courthouse moments after he was found guilty on all 7 counts of witness tampering, obstruction, and lying to Congress.
So I would say that these are pretty serious charges from Roger Stone. And this is a person who was very close to Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump were to come in for a second term, he would likely be close to Trump again. I have full faith that Donald Trump will continue to surround himself with criminals if he are reelected. But moving on, we have, again, George Papadopoulos, a former Trump advisor. He was convicted of lying to investigators about the whole Russiagate scandal.
Jeff Pegues on the guilty plea by George Papadopoulos to charges he lied to the FBI about his contacts with Russian operatives.
President Trump showcased his foreign policy team for Washington Post editors on March 21, 2016. Among them, a political unknown in his late 20s.
George Papadopoulos, he's an oil and energy consultant, excellent guy.
Court papers say Papadopoulos now admits he went to work right away, setting up meetings with Russian operatives who told him in April of 2016 they had dirt on then-candidate Hillary Clinton, including thousands of emails.
So when people try to lie and say that there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, they are lying to you. There may have not been direct collusion between Trump himself and Russia, but there was definite collusion between multiple members of Donald Trump's campaign back before he got elected in 2016. But moving on, we have Michael Flynn, a former national security advisor. He pled guilty to lying to the FBI, also surrounding this Russia investigation with Trump's campaign.
We begin tonight with Michael Flynn and his guilty plea. President Trump's former national security advisor admitting he lied to the FBI, arriving with his wife at federal court in Washington, already processed and fingerprinted as part of his plea. With the deal, Flynn is now agreeing to cooperate with the special counsel. Could that mean Flynn will testify against the president? We begin with ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross.
He was once one of the president's closest advisors, one of his first major appointments. But today, as General Michael Flynn walked out of court in Washington, protesters chanted, "Lock him up." An echo of Flynn's own words about Hillary Clinton.
Lock her up!
Flynn pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI, telling associates he is prepared to testify, if needed, against President Trump and others in the White House.
So as you can see, this is another character who was talking to Russian intelligence or people in Russia and then was later found, caught lying to the FBI about it. These are just grimy people. Not somebody that I would want my president to be surrounded by. And then we have Rick Gates. He was a former campaign vice chairman. He was convicted of conspiracy against the United States and lying to the FBI.
Former Trump campaign aide Rick Gates has been sentenced in federal court. He pleaded guilty last year to charges stemming from special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. On Tuesday, a judge sentenced him to 3 years probation and 45 days in jail. He also got handed a $20,000 fine and will have to complete 300 hours of community service. He initially faced multiple years behind bars after he pleaded guilty to conspiracy against the U.S. and making a false statement.
When people look at Trump and want to say that he's going to be out draining the swamp, it seems like to me the people surrounding Trump are the actual swamp. We even have Michael Cohen, who was Trump's former attorney. He was convicted for a whole wide range of different crimes. And he worked very closely with Trump for, 10 or more years?
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Jeff Glor at CBS News headquarters in New York. Good afternoon. Michael Cohen, President Trump's former personal lawyer, has just been sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. He pleaded guilty to 9 counts of tax evasion, lying to Congress and a financial institution, and perhaps most notably to campaign finance violations related to hush money payments made to an adult film actress and Playboy playmate during the 2016 campaign. Mr. Cohen says that the president directed him, wasn't the president at the time, directed him to make those payments. In addressing the judge, the Cohen said, quote, "Weakness was a blind loyalty to Donald Trump."
So if this sounds familiar to you, it should, because the same crimes that Michael Cohen served prison time for are the same crimes that Donald Trump was convicted of just a couple weeks ago. And then we have Alan Weisselberg. He was the former CEO to the Trump Organization. He was convicted of tax fraud and perjury on behalf of Donald Trump.
Former Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg was sentenced on Tuesday to 5 months behind bars for helping engineer a wide-ranging tax fraud scheme at the Trump Organization. Weisselberg, who is 75, was expected to be sent to New York's notorious Rikers Island jail.
As I said before, this was a man who was very close to Donald Trump. I think he worked for the Trump Organization for decades. Trump just surrounds himself with criminals. It's really quite a sight to see. Even when I was researching this piece, it blew my mind how many people close to Trump have been criminally indicted for a wide range of different crimes. But moving on to Peter Navarro, he was a former advisor and White House aide to Donald Trump.
Also breaking today, Trump White House official Peter Navarro was convicted of contempt of Congress charges in relation to the attack on January 6th. Navarro served as a White House trade advisor under former President Donald Trump. The jury found him guilty of 2 counts of contempt for refusing to testify before the January 6th committee.
So as it said there, he didn't want to turn over evidence. He didn't want to give testimony to the January 6th committee after Donald Trump and his MAGA loyalists led an attempted insurrection against the United States. These are the people who are supposed to be the law and order party. But that doesn't seem to be holding true, now does it? And I think one of the slimiest characters of them all would be Steve Bannon, Trump's former chief strategist.
And Trump's former chief strategist has been convicted of contempt of Congress. Steve Bannon was found guilty of defying a subpoena from the House committee investigating the January 6th insurrection. Appearing outside the courthouse, Bannon told reporters that he stood with Trump and the Constitution and vowed to appeal. Bannon still has to be sentenced and faces up to 2 years in federal prison.
So Steve Bannon was not only convicted of contempt of Congress for stuff surrounding January 6th, but before that, he was also charged with wire fraud and money laundering. But if you want to put the cherry on top, some of these people were pardoned by Trump. It just completes the circle, doesn't it? A whole wide-ranging criminal enterprise with Donald Trump as their leader.
U.S. President Donald Trump has swept away the top convictions made in the Russia probe after he pardoned 2 more allies, ex-campaign manager Paul Manafort and a close associate Roger Stone on Wednesday. It was the second wave of pardons and commutations in as many days as Trump faces the end of his term. He also gave clemency to Charles Kushner, father of his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Manafort and Stone had both declined to cooperate with the investigation into Russia's meddling in the 2016 election. The day before, Trump pardoned 2 other major figures in the investigation, Michael Flynn, his former national security advisor, and George Papadopoulos.
So this is pretty disgusting behavior. We have Donald Trump, a now convicted felon, surrounding himself with a slew of criminals, and then he's actually going to pardon those who are loyal to him. It really is starting to feel like he wants to be a mob boss, right? And we aren't even touching on all of the different lawyers and people involved in his fake elector scheme to try to overturn the 2020 election. We'll have to do a complete video, separate video on that, because there are even more names attached to that list. So if we're supposed to judge people by the character they keep, Donald Trump is looking like he's got some pretty low character. So it's quite wild to me that people want to vote this man in again and have a criminal president in 2024. Quite wild. So that's going to do it for me on this one, folks. If you got anything out of this video, please remember to smash that like button and hit subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. If you think I got something wrong, or if you disagree with me about something, feel free to drop a comment below. And if you want to know why I think Trump is the most un-American presidential candidate that we have ever seen, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. And I will see you guys on the next one.